to the cloud. Oh, I guess it didn't give me an
Oh,
option.
someone looks like someone just did it.
I just
heard
did it.
recordings. Oh, okay, great.
I don't know where it's going, but I'm recording it somewhere. It's going
Cloud
somewhere.
up there with all the angels,
Maybe
right?
it's up in the cloud. I guess we'll ask Mel later where it went. We'll have to, Excellent. Oh, okay. So I could start, or am I
The
waiting for
show
any?
is yours. The Zoom is
Fantastic.
yours.
Awesome. My name's Eric. I'm the cantor at the Reconstructionist Synagogue of the North Shore, which we affectionately and more conveniently call RSNS. It's easier to say. We had a few years ago, we debated maybe renaming the congregation, and I suggested that we should use Orot and Met, like Lights of Truth, because the Ashkenazi pronunciation would be Oros Emes, and it sounds like RSNS, but I got voted out for that. They didn't like
I
that.
love it.
So when we got invited to submit for this, it was really perfect timing because we had just entered into the final phase of this project that we did, which was to pay as much attention to the room where our teens and preteens were going to hang out and try to give as much thought to it and approach it in such a way with both values and aesthetics as we do for the sanctuary space, which we had just had a capital campaign to redesign. So I'm going to share my screen. I've never learned how to use PowerPoint, so this is all just like in like a Pages doc, but hopefully I'll be able to control it in such a way. Okay, can you see just this giant Mordecai?
You are Luddite after my heart, what you just said. Yeah. So
okay, great. Can you all see just this giant Mordecai Kaplan quote?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and read. I'll go ahead and read that. It's one of the few passages in the book that I don't have to translate into English, so I'll just read it straight up. The art of a civilization is its individual interpretation of the world in color, sound, and image, an integration that is familiar and profoundly interesting to the people of that civilization. This art contributes a uniquely expressive value to each object of the spiritual life of that people. So does anything stand out to you about this quote? Is there any part of this that you feel resonates with you or you have, issue with? Go ahead, Deborah.
Years ago when I was teaching second grade, we talked about God, and one of my students said, I think God put color into the world. And ever since then, when I see something that talks about, when they asked us to do our own artwork, I have a cup full of markers and I did a very colorful thing. I think that color is a really big part of life and what makes me appreciate it as much.
That's great. I think it's Sandy Sappho, wasn't it, that wrote a wonderful book about God's paintbrush and talking about how essential color is. And you think just in terms of a pluralistic sense, right? You have different wavelengths, literally, with different colors. And I think it's just such an intuitive way, if you can create something that's colorful, to showcase what the value of pluralism is through that creation. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll cut to the chase and then work our way backwards. Here's the finished mural in our newly renovated teen lounge. And don't worry, I have a little bit of like a video tour and some close-ups I'll show you later, but this is just to give you the idea that we were really shooting for color as a primary idea. But in addition, you could see hints of it already without me even zooming in, that literally woven within this mural that is our entire back wall of this teen lounge are values that are essential to the community. And the process that we went through to determine, out of the plethora of values that we could choose, which to use, which to portray with language and which to portray with art, was really essential to this entire process, as much as the actual painting was. All right, let me see. You're gonna scroll up here. Okay, so this was when we redid our sanctuary, we had some money left over to take the sort of moldy downstairs storage space that for some reason, we bought our building from a former it was a Unitarian congregation that we were very friendly with. in the mid 90s, early to mid 90s. And it's a beautiful building. And they had this room down there, and it actually has a bathroom in it, which makes it perfect to use as a classroom and lounge space. But it was really just not used at all. So you could see I had to use like a fisheye lens just to get this whole wall in. It is a very, very large wall. Let me put a foosball back here, of course. And we have for movie nights, we have a TV. We have some like, inviting seating. But this wall was just crying out for something that would make the space welcoming, and what we hoped was also emblematic of what our institution is about. The same way that we put a lot of thought into our ARC and a lot of thought into our BIMA, we wanted to put a lot of thought into the primary space, blank space, in the in our teen lounge area. So you can see here, this is we're teaching our 7th grade class, and so this is before the wall is done. You could see it's just begging for something. So what we did as a process is that we Rabbi Jody Sif, who's an RSC graduate, and like myself has been clergy here at RSNS for around 25 years. She, through her participation in Leadership Institute, knew of a Jewish artist and educator named Jennifer Levine. So Jennifer Levine, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about her. She is someone who has her BA in Jewish Studies from UMass Amherst, and she also studied at the Graduate Theological Union. She's been the principal of 5 different religious schools over the years. In addition to going to the Leadership Institute, she also, as a fellow alumni of the Institute for Jewish Spirituality, she's a very talented, accomplished artist, and her specialty is creating murals with community input, primarily in a Jewish educational setting. So Robert Bondiola, who's the general manager of the dance and theater programs at Bard College, where Ms. Levine has also done a mural, said about her graceful line and creation of drawings within drawings continually guide the viewer on an unusual journey of things familiar and unfamiliar. Gentle yet bold, her work has come to define what a sense of community can be for all of us. So that sounded pretty good to us, guiding on a journey through familiar and unfamiliar, and that it can define what a sense of community is. So Rabbi Jody and I met with Jennifer in person, and we hashed out a process which we decided was going to primarily engage the teens as our primary stakeholders in the process of determining both what values we would focus on and how those values would be represented in a work of art. So that, again, we can reinforce the Reconstructionist idea that with Judaism as a civilization, a big part of our civilization is how we express ourselves artistically and metaphorically and symbolically through poetry and art and music. So let me see here. I'll go up to the near the bottom. Okay, so some of you may know that there's this song that I.L. Weiner Kaplan did years ago that for a while it's kind of fallen out of favor at Camp Havaya, but for a while it was the unofficial theme song of the Reconstructionist movement's camp. And that song was called "The Values of Spiritual Peoplehood," which I know is very familiar to this institution and to those of you who are here today. But it was sung. It was like a very catchy little Derech Eretz Kedusha Tzionut Hidur Mitzvah Tikkun Olam Chochma Kehila Yadada Kehila. And it was like a little catchy tune, and it really, for lack of a better word, it indoctrinated our Reconstructionist campers into these values, and there were little verses about what each value meant. So this was sort of our template. We had these. We said, where are we going to start? What's our starting point? We're going to start with these values of spiritual peoplehood. And then we had sessions. Jody had a session with her teen girls group. I had a session with our teen boys group. We had a session at a professional development for our faculty. And we also had a session with 7th graders and their parents, and as well as one just internally among our leadership team, to talk about these different values and which ones represented core values for our community. And so after doing that, we settled on 3. We settled on the ones that we thought were most important to our institution. And we also got a bonus because Hidur Mitzvah we knew was going to be the value that represented the entire creation process through beautification of the space. So we kind of got a bonus one in there. But the three that stood out to us were Tikkun Olam, Kehila, and then we decided instead of Derech Eretz, which felt a little less familiar to us, our sort of spin on Derech Eretz was simply kavod, and the idea of honoring and respecting each other's humanity. So in the end, we sort of tweaked a little bit and decided that the three values were going to be kavod, Tikkun Olam, and Kehila, community. So how to represent those in art. So Jennifer led a series of workshops with our teens. I'll show you some of the images that they came up with. Let's see here. Okay, so there were some ideas, there was obviously some classic iconography, and I would say these are the three most popular images among Jewish teens: Jewish star, heart, and a peace sign. But we did kind of want to move beyond that. So we tried to push them a little further. So we came up with the idea that there would be three sections of the mural. So, and again, these were like sketches to give the artist ideas. So one is the idea of people working together, the idea of, talking someone, moving them from like the abyss into community, and folks being able to enjoy nature and learning together. Someone else had this wonderful idea of using people sort of together. This is one of our teens who came up with this, and I really think it's fantastic, of sort of people relying on each other as a way to signify the greater whole. Reminds me, it's sort of like an Adam Kadmon kind of thing, but it's like all these people combined. And then she did another version where, the people were being held up by this person. And then in terms of the Kehila, this idea of helping it seemed to be very important to a lot of our teens. So these were some of the ideas that the artist had to work with. She created a sketch for the entire mural, a draft. We brought that to the teens. They gave their feedback. And then we were able to move forward from there. She came and sketched out the preliminary idea on the wall. So the one thing that we decided would be important to us is to have a talit as the unifying object that will be running through it. I'm sure some of your congregations as well do a ritual where you hold you extend your talitot around each other during the priestly blessing. And for us, this is like the Ura ritual of our community. This idea of everybody spreading these, and of course, it was very one of the things that was most missed during COVID was not being able to do that. And then moving from a little bit back in person to people doing it in pods to now feeling like some folks feel like they can now do it again communally. Of course, that depends on people's comfort level. But in any event, we wanted to have this talit stretched out over our community as a way to signify our sense of unity within diversity. So our teens were the ones who did all of the painting. This is Jennifer over here, she who had sketched out the draft on the wall. So here's some more images of our teens. And again, they got to make choices in terms of, the structure of it. It was important to them that there be places for animals that could live in these trees, that the color could really be represented even within the trees themselves, that there would be just lots of eye-popping color. Another key point, and I think I'll show you, this is a larger image here. It was very important to us as we engaged in this, that the Jews on this mural be Jews of many colors. That it was important that this wasn't even something that we singled out as unique, but more like de facto, that Jews come in many colors. And so within our Kehila, these are some of the Jews you would find in our community of different colors. We also had input that it was important to include Jews of different genders and different sexual orientations. And so we needed a place for it, and we decided on the tool belt of this person was going to be good. So you could see already the idea, this went directly from that teen's image into the final drawing in several locations. And her notion of people holding on to each other and also helping each other up also made it into the final version. So we had some back and forth about how the Hebrew was going to be incorporated. And so we decided we really wanted to have the Hebrew words next to their English counterparts so that it became very clear that they were connected. This was sort of just a fortunate, as we saw how the words were going to lay out, we're like, oh, look at this. Unity can sort of be its own standalone as part of the word community. And again, we have people helping each other with this tali, with the seat on the edges. So community was on this side, and there's someone's peace sign that they lobbied for. For fixing the world, we have the largest representation of nature. And we also did for the Hebrew, we took the final nun, the nun sofit from tikkun and tikkun olam, and turned it into the sewing needle for repairing the world. Trying to reinforce again the idea that you can learn Hebrew through the art as well. And then we had, the world being supported by hands. And then, oh, I guess you can't see it here. There is a kavod. You'll see it when I show you the video, which I guess I can just, let me see here. Do I have any other? Okay. I'm just, you know what, here, let me stop sharing for a minute. I'll show you a video just so you can see the whole thing sort of in its space. Maybe I might need to shrink this down a little bit. Hang on.
Eric, Devora has a question.
Please.
Yes. How did you protect it once you had it all painted?
Once it's all painted and the paint dried, it's just it's I guess it's your typical, the same way that, like, in your house, if the paint if it gets a little smushed, it's a little smushed. I will say Rabbi Jody's been very strict about not allowing any eating down there. So we have our kitchen and our social hall directly above this space. So it's very easy to transition from eating. Like, you can do anything in this lounge except for eat. There's conversations, you could do art, we have games down there, we can watch videos, we have conversations, you can just hang out and like lounge. No food. We'll see how long that lasts.
And during COVID, that was easy because everybody was wearing masks.
Correct. It was, it sort of worked out for us. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and show you a quick little video of the space from one end to the other. Oh, here, from this part alone, you can see where the kavod, fits in. And as you're looking at it, if there's any part of this mural that raises any questions for you that you'd like to. So we're really happy that we managed to fill the whole wall. That was a real big, that was a concern. We weren't sure how exactly that was going to work. Okay, so I see, is it Audra or Adra? Audra?
It's Adra, long A.
Okay, great. So the owls meeting, I think that in terms of, figuring out what animals to put in the trees, I think A, owls live in trees, and B, there is the idea of, there's a little piece of a wisdom component in there too. Part of it is the idea
there are a lot of owls. It's cute. I like it.
It's very, me too. And Juice.
Can I ask you a few questions?
Of course.
So I will say I previously to working in Camp Avia, I worked for a conservative synagogue here in Austin, Texas, where I live. And we did a tile mural. So I just got out of doing this process. So I'm super intrigued. I would love to hear more about what the program was like that you facilitated, with the teens, with
Absolutely.
Their parents, those pieces, and then also how those pieces have endured post the actual creating of the mural.
That's a great question. So in terms of the process, so basically let me see if I can pull this up again, the values piece of it. Hang on one second. Okay. Oh,
I
here.
will say, I'm thinking about doing this. We're thinking about doing some painting of walls at camp that are still very in the rustic area. On the like Hillel Smith artist kind of wavelength.
Yeah, for
So
sure. Okay, so here I have I'll just pull
we
them.
might just have to have our own personal phone call. Also, it sounds like you need to come to camp.
I love Camp. You're at Camp Havaya this coming summer?
I started in June.
Oh,
I was there this summer. I took over for Shira.
Oh, are you like the new director? Like you're like with are you working with Isaac? Like
Yeah,
that's fantastic. Wow.
that's me.
All right.
Wow.
Excellent. Okay, so here are the values. And so the first thing we did was we presented these values with the very base level, like literally this, the base level definition. And I would say half of whether we met just with the teens individually or when we met, when we did this with our faculty development or when we did it, the structure of our 7th grade class is they meet weekly, every Tuesday night, and one Tuesday out of the month, the parents come as well. And we treat it really like an intro to Judaism course. It's really not a B'nai Mitzvah prep course. So so it's an opportunity. It's really, we consider it a multi-generational learning opportunity. So we're like, here are the values of spiritual peoplehood. Woo! And let's talk a bit about what they mean, and also like how do you apply them to our community. So I think that before we tried to single out which ones were essential to our community, we'd say, all right, in our community, like where does Kiddushah come into play? Where do you see that both physically in our buildings structure and in the interplay between members of the congregation? Where do you see examples of kavod? Where do you see examples? I got to fix this spelling here, but it should be B'Tselem, not B'Delem. Oops. And also, like, how do you see this in your home? Like, how do you see in your own life? Like, when does Shalom Bayit come into play for you? And so after spending time, really, this is just a wonderful way to have an excuse to cover this basic topic and say, all right, so in RSNS, like, what do you feel the most? Like, what is your, when you come into our building and when you leave, right? When it's like you rise up and when you're walking on the path, when you enter and you leave, like, what is your sense of what we're all about and why? And so people will give different answers. Oh, I'll show you one more thing if I can find it. Okay, here it is. Let me stop sharing. We also did at the Zoom session that Jennifer did with just the teens, she asked them, she created not the game Wordle. Before there was the game Wordle, there was like those word graphics where like the more common a word was that people gave, the bigger it got, right? That was like the OG Wordle. So she did one for the different movements of Judaism with the teens. She said, give me your words for the different movements of Judaism. So this is, you can guess, this is Orthodox, right? That was their, feeling for that. This was conservative. I like it. I like the in-between here. I think that's a really good, long services.
They're not wrong.
They're not wrong.
They're wrong.
Okay. And this idea of like, it has a traditional underbelly. I mean, you could kind of like, I guess for Reconstructionist Jews, I guess you wouldn't say it's a traditional underbelly. You might say that it has, I don't know what physical manifestation of the tradition is, but I don't think we would call it the underbelly. Maybe the belly button. I don't know. This is the Reform. And I think it was also instructive to do this versus then Reconstructionist to see how the two would be different. Interestingly enough, the word assimilated was, highlighted for Reform and not for Reconstructionist. So here's the one for Reconstructionist and specifically for our community. So, this is a big one here. The fact that they put not God-centric, I think, was also instructive in terms of like what the subject matter was going to be on our mural. And you see spiritual peoplehood is over here, interactive, come as you are, egalitarian, social justice is sort of a central component. There's Havaya. Musical, adaptive was an important part. So like this was a way for the teens to sort of visualize who we are and like what we're about, and then apply that to like, all right, so which values would you overlay on this Wordle that you just came up with? So that's, that's essentially sort of like the process we went through. And then basically like in a very sort of democratic reconstructionist way, we just voted, and then the votes that won win. Like we didn't really, Jody and I didn't really have a horse in that race. Like we felt like whatever they came up with, it would not be hard to come up with creative representations for it. And so then basically Jen was able to take away from what the feedback was, like, all right, these are 3 values. We'll split the mural into 3 parts. And then she did her magic. And, the Talit idea, I think, sort of came up in multiple sessions as like a way to represent like all of us, feeling wrapped. And we also wanted, honestly, the kids who go down there to feel that, to sort of like, as a constant reminder, like that was like how I would feel. So interestingly enough, so in terms of how we continue now the project post mural design, a few years prior to this, we designed a historical timeline with different panels representing different periods of Jewish history. That's upstairs, and we use that a lot with our classes, where we'll take them out on little field trips, out into the areas of the building where this timeline is, because it's very big, so it's in like different rooms. And I see a situation where we use this mural in the same way, where if younger kids are down there, because it is really a multi-purpose space, having them react to like, which thing from nature on here really makes you think most about kavod, and like, which is what are the people doing here that make you think about, Shalom Bayit or Tikkun Olam, and having them reflect back and to say, okay, if you were going to, and I would say maybe in 5 years, we would say like, if you were going to redesign this mural, would you keep the same values? Would you change the values? Also, here, let me see if I'll pull back up the first page here. So you may notice, let me see, where is it? There's another wall back there that is blank still. So we sort of intentionally, like, there is a space. Let me see if there's a bigger, I don't know if you'll be able to see it now, but there is that whole, like a 90-degree angle. It's much smaller, but we have thought that we could reserve that space for a follow-up project. It might, I don't know that it's necessarily going to be another value, but like, again, there's a further process we could go through on that. We also asked people who, we did fundraise for it. Even though we didn't get this grant, we did fundraise for it successfully. And one of the things that we did was folks who, whatever amount they donated, they came down and did a little bit of the painting too. So they felt like it wasn't like they got their name up. They just got to have their brushstrokes, like they were a part of it. Other questions folks have?
So did the kids feel like they were part of the big machers because they got to do more painting?
And I think that's, I'm sure, like, because we're only a year removed from it, it hasn't quite reached that point yet. But my hope is that they'll come back and be like, let me show you the mural that I helped design, or let me show you this. I painted this squirrel over here, or like I painted this, bet that's over in this corner over here. Yeah, I think that's one of the best ways, for when you create something, you really do own it, and I hope that extends for them, not only to the piece of artwork that they did, but to like, the value that they chose, like that they own Kahila, because like that's what they decided was essential to our community. That's a good question, is are there names on it? So we sort of, I guess, also in keeping with our communities, our synagogue has sort of a very pervasive no plaque policy, other than the yard site, the memorial plaques, right? But there's no like so-and-so memorial, sanctuary or this or that. So we kind of wanted to also model that for the kids, that it wasn't about their names. It was about what they put on the wall to make this project, to have ownership over this project. So it's a good question, but yeah, we intentionally did not have them sign their names. It also means they have to look a little bit harder to find when they come back what they did. Otherwise, you know how they would go straight for the look. Here's my name. You know, that's not what we wanted for a signature. Other questions? Anything else come up for you?
We have 5 minutes left, that's all.
Sorry to jump in.
No, go for it.
Everyone, great to see you, Eric. I think Sheridan was going to send out the 5-minute reminder at 3:50 since we started a little late. So you can you can take your time if you have questions.
Okay. I had said that I have to hop off at 3:45.
Oh, that's right. You have to leave. I forgot. Hi. See what happens. I come in and
you might have to suck people back at 3:45.
Yeah,
so
you wrap up when you need to wrap up. I apologize.
Devorah, yes.
Eric, go ahead, please, Laura.
Devorah and then Jeffrey. Thank you.
You said that your ritual committee approved last year the change to Nala Amod for Torah Aliyot. What about for please stand for the whatever? Because
so you're asking, that was from the earlier session, right? When we were talking about stuff.
I happened to see it as you were talking.
So the Nala Amod was that's for calling forward folks for an aliyah, right? Like Nala Amod, so and so, right?
Okay.
Like instead of Ta'amdu or Ya'amdu, we just use Nala Amod as our gender neutral.
Thank you.
We also, we probably give people more choices than they even know what to do with, because you could do Nala mode, you can do your gender specific if you want, you can do, you can either do B'nai mitzvah or Bat mitzvah or Bar mitzvah, whatever.
We do B mitzvah.
We don't do B mitzvah, just like we
do.
Oh, you do? Okay, yeah.
B mitzvah.
Yeah.
So.
And I think it's still fluid, but yeah. So Jeffrey, what was your question?
Well, one quick comment and then a question. The comment is Nala mode was language that was very prevalent at Camp Ramah, and they did it not out of gender considerations, but because it was simpler Hebrew.
Yes.
But the problem was that's not the best formulation of Hebrew. So Gesher Sarma'od, a narrow ridge where you solve one problem and create a dent against a true appreciation of Hebrew. Yeah, perhaps.
I think we surveyed best practices and found that was a pretty common way to, like you said.
Yeah. Well, yeah. My question is, have the teens gotten used to the murals and the home? So it's now their home. Do they take it for granted, or do they catch new things about it with prompts from you or others?
I think that's a really good question. And I would say, like, as educators, we should continue to be aware of prompting them to, to not take it for granted through maybe different intent, like giving different intentions, like at a particular moment, like whatever it is that we're doing down there, there could be an opportunity to say, is there anything on this mural that, speaks to you about X, whatever the X is that we're doing. I think that's a good reminder, Jeffrey. That's a more informal way and more frequent way, I think, that we can have that mural. If we call it a mural of living values, we do want to have that.
Well, I could see them revisiting it each year before Rosh Hashanah or during Elul and saying, which piece of this mural addresses you this year and what you want to accomplish. It's such a rich visual midrash for them.
I love that. That's great. Yeah.
It is good.
I'm going to steal that idea, Jeffrey. Thank you.
Yeah, that's what this conference is all about. This is wonderful. Thank you.
Well, thanks for the opportunity to share it with you all. And I'm happy to share contact information for Jennifer Levine. I'm happy to share the study sheet that we use with the different, spelling out the different values, the back and forths that we had. I showed you some of the initial sketches, but I can also show you a little bit more for those who are interested of the conversation thread. I was, in prepping for today, it was really great. I was able to go back and look at my text thread with Jennifer and see, it was almost Talmudic, like seeing how, and also our email conversations, and to see, the teen said this, can you change this? Can you move this over here? Can you do this more and this less? And to see how that interplay was very much a part of this too, that it was literally not written in stone. Everything was very fluid until we came up with the final design. Great. So again, thanks for the opportunity. I'm sorry that I have to run. But hope you guys have a good rest of your time together. And thanks.
Thank you so much,
Thank-
Eric. And
Thank
I'll
you
be in
very
touch about
much.
the recording. Thanks for doing the recording.
Thanks, Eric.
Well, it didn't tell me where it was going, so
You recorded, not Michael. Which one?
Yeah, Eric
I hit the
recorded it.
I hit the record button.
When I record, it usually goes to your own computer.
Oh, I guess I'll find out. If it
So
does,
if you stop it,
A professional account usually goes to the cloud if you have a cloud.
I think. I mean,
Uh,
usually like it would give. Should I stop it now?
you could stop it now.
Okay.